The Celadon vase, sitting on Jae-won Park's mahogany shelf, was worth more than Crystal Washington's entire year of rent. She didn't know that when her trembling fingers accidentally knocked it to the floor at 3:42 a.m., she'd been standing on a ladder, dusting the crystal chandelier that hung like a constellation of diamonds above his private office. Her vision had blurred. 16 hours of scrubbing, sweeping, and surviving on energy drinks will do that to a person. The ladder wobbled. Crystal grabbed for something, anything, to steady herself. Her hand caught the edge of the shelf, but her elbow sent the ancient vase tumbling. It hit the marble floor with a sound that seemed to echo through the entire 47th floor of the Park Industries building. If you're ready to listen to a masterpiece like you've never had before, you might want to grab a bowl of popcorn and a box of tissue paper, because Crystal's story is going to take you down the lane of emotions and intrigue. If you're coming across this channel for the first time, do well to hit the subscribe button, like and share to support what we do. Now let's get right into it. The shattering was absolute. Pieces of jade green porcelain scattered across the white marble like fragments of a broken sky. Crystal froze, balanced precariously on the ladder, her heart hammering so loud she could hear it in her ears. The vase lay there, accusatory, destroyed beyond repair against white marble. She scrambled down the ladder, her hands shaking as she stared at the irreparable damage. That's when she heard the private elevator chime. Oh no! Oh God, no! Crystal's eyes darted to the clock. 3:47 a.m. Nobody was supposed to be here. The building schedule said the executives never arrived before 7. She checked it 3 times. The elevator doors whispered open. Jae-won Park stepped out, and Crystal's first thought was that photographs didn't do him justice. She'd seen his face on magazine covers, on billboards, in the business section of newspapers that people left on the subway. But in person, he was something else entirely. 6 feet of controlled elegance in a black turtleneck and slacks that probably cost more than her car. His face was all sharp angles and smooth skin, his dark hair perfectly styled even at this ungodly hour. He moved like someone who'd never doubted himself a single day in his life. His eyes, dark, intense, calculating, swept the office and landed on Crystal. Then on the shattered fragments on the floor. Then back to Crystal. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "Step away from it," Jae-won said. His voice was quiet, but it sliced through the air like a blade. His accent was subtle, a hint of soul underneath perfect English. Crystal stepped back, her voice trembling. "I'm so sorry, sir. I was cleaning the chandelier, and I lost my balance, and—" "You're cleaning at 3 in the morning?" It wasn't a question. "Yes, sir. I work the overnight shift for premium clean services. Your building is on my route." Jae-won walked closer, each step deliberate. He didn't look at Crystal. He was staring at the broken pieces, his jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscle jumping. This vase was from the Goryeo dynasty, 12th century. It belonged to my great-great-grandfather and has been passed down through 5 generations of my family. Crystal's stomach dropped. "I'm so sorry. Can it be repaired? I can pay for restoration." "You can't." Jae-won finally looked at her, and his gaze was cold enough to cause frostbite. "This vase is over 800 years old. It's irreplaceable, priceless. You couldn't afford to compensate my family for this loss if you work for the next decade." The words hit Crystal like a physical blow. She knew he was right. She was already drowning in debt, already working 3 jobs just to keep her head above water. Adding a priceless family heirloom to that list would finish her. "Please don't fire me," Crystal heard herself say. The words came out smaller than she intended. "Please, I need this job." Jae-won's expression didn't change. He pulled out his phone and made a call. "Min-soo, I need you in my office. Now." 5 minutes later, a man in a security uniform appeared. Min-soo was older, maybe 50s, with kind eyes that didn't match the corporate intimidation of the building. "Sir," Min-soo said, "this woman was cleaning my office unsupervised. I want to know who authorized her to be in here." Min-soo glanced at Crystal, and something like sympathy crossed his face. The cleaning company has full access to all floors, sir. It's in their contract. Change the contract. No one enters my private office without my explicit permission. Jae-won's voice was flat, final. And call Premium Clean Services. This woman is banned from the building. Wait. Crystal stepped forward, then immediately stepped back when Jae-won's eyes cut to her. Please, Mr. Park. I can't get fired. My grandmother, she's sick. I'm paying for her medication, her treatments. If I lose this job, everyone has a sad story, Jae-won interrupted. Yours doesn't interest me. The cruelty of it stole Crystal's breath. She'd been poor her whole life, had heard variations of this dismissal 1,000 times, but it never stopped hurting. Rich people saw poor people as inconveniences, as problems to be solved or removed. But Crystal Kwame hadn't survived 26 years in a world that wanted her to fail by giving up easily. Then let me work it off, Crystal said, her voice stronger now. Whatever damage I caused, let me work to pay for it. I'll clean extra shifts. I'll do whatever you need. I don't need anything from you. Everyone needs something. The words hung in the air. Jae-won's eyes narrowed, and for a moment, Crystal saw something flicker there. Curiosity? Annoyance? She couldn't tell. Min-soo, escort her out, Jae-won said finally. Crystal's last chance was evaporating. She did something desperate, something stupid. She grabbed Jae-won's wrist as he turned away. The world exploded, not with sound or light, but with sensation. The moment Crystal's skin touched Jae-won's, a jolt of electricity shot through her entire body. It wasn't painful. It was the opposite. Warm, tingling, alive. Like every nerve ending suddenly woke up and started singing. Jae-won jerked back so violently he knocked into his desk. His eyes were wide, his breathing sharp. He stared at his wrist like it had betrayed him, then at Crystal like she'd just performed dark magic. What? His voice was hoarse. What was that? How dare you touch me? Crystal's hand hovered in the air in shock. Nothing, sir, she stuttered, tears still rushing into her already glossy eyes. Please have mercy, sir, she begged. They stared at each other. Min-soo looked between them, clearly confused about what he'd missed. Jae-won's jaw clenched. His hand was shaking, the softness of her palm. It was nothing he had felt before. He reached for his phone again, but his fingers fumbled and the phone slipped from his grasp. It fell, tumbling through the air in slow motion, and shattered against the marble floor. The screen spiderwebbed into 1,000 pieces. Shit, he mumbled, then silence followed. That phone. Jae-won's jaw clenched, his eyes locked in on hers. That phone cost $45,000, and you made it fall. You broke it. A dry chuckle escaped his lip. Crystal felt the blood drain from her face. She just went from the pan into the fire. $45,000. That was more than she made in a year. You're going to pay for it, Jae-won continued, his voice gaining strength, becoming businesslike. Every damn cent. Maybe next time you'd learn to be more careful. He growled. I don't have that kind of money. You should have thought of that before you acted clumsy or dared to touch me. He stared at her from the crown of her head to the messy, dusting napkin she held, down to her feet. His expression began to soften unexplainably, though he maintained a stiff composure before he exhaled sharply. If you cannot pay for your mess, I'm left with no other option than to ask you to work for me until you do. Jae-won tightened her jaw, raising her head to meet his eye level. Her eyes gorgeous almond eyes. It was enchanting, but his expression remained unreadable. Starting tomorrow morning. 6 a.m. My penthouse. Don't be late. He walked out, leaving Crystal standing in his office, her hands still tingling, her mind reeling. Min-soo sighed. You just made either the best or worst decision of your life, kid. With Jae-won Park, it's always hard to tell which. 72 hours earlier, Crystal had been sitting in a different kind of office. This one smelled like antiseptic and despair. Miss Kwame. Dr. Kim's voice was gentle, which somehow made everything worse. Your grandmother's condition is progressing faster than we anticipated. Crystal sat in the plastic chair across from her, hands clenched in her lap. Through the window, She could see Graham lying in the hospital bed, tubes and wires connecting her to machines that beeped with mechanical indifference. What does that mean? Crystal asked, though she already knew. She'd been through this conversation before in different hospitals with different doctors, but the same terrible ending. The dementia is accelerating. She's having more episodes, becoming more confused. And her heart, Dr. Kim paused. Her heart is failing. We need to get her into a specialty care facility where she can receive round-the-clock monitoring. How much would it cost? Crystal asked. The facility we're recommending costs approximately $8,000 per month. $8,000. Crystal did the math instantly, helplessly. She was making $15 an hour at the diner, $18 at Premium Clean, $22 at her weekend gig doing data entry. Even working 80 hours a week, she cleared maybe $3,000 a month after taxes. Rent was $1,200. Utilities, food, transportation, there was nothing left. Less than nothing. I can't afford that, Crystal whispered. I understand. There are some government programs. She won't qualify. She owns her house. It's paid off, but it's still an asset. They'll make her sell it first. The house Graham had worked 40 years to pay for. The house where Crystal had grown up after her parents died. The only home either of them had ever known. Dr. Kim's expression was sympathetic but helpless. I'm sorry, Miss Kwame. Without proper care, your grandmother has maybe 6 months. With care, we could extend that to a few years, maintain her quality of life. I'll find the money. Crystal stood up, her legs unsteady. Just give me some time. But time was the one thing she didn't have. Crystal's best friend Yoonmi found her in the hospital cafeteria 20 minutes later, crying into a cup of coffee that cost $4 she couldn't spare. Okay, talk to me. Yoonmi slid into the seat across from her, setting down 2 muffins she'd clearly just bought. She pushed one toward Crystal. And don't say you're not hungry. You're always hungry. You just never eat because you're trying to save money. Crystal looked at the muffin, blueberry, her favorite, and felt her eyes burn with fresh tears. $8,000 a month, Yoon. How am I supposed to find $8,000 a month? Yumi's face fell. The care facility? She needs it. Dr. Kim says without it. She's got 6 months. Crystal's voice cracked. I can't lose her. She raised me after Mom and Dad died. She gave up everything for me. I have to save her. You can't save everyone, Crystal. I can try. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Yumi pulled out her phone. My cousin Jihoon works for this high-end cleaning company. They service all the luxury buildings downtown. The pay is better, $25 an hour plus overtime. And trust me, there's always overtime. $25 an hour. Crystal's brain started calculating automatically. If she could get 40 hours there, plus keep her diner job. What's the company? Premium Clean Services. I'm texting you Ji-hoon's number right now. Yoonmi's fingers flew over her phone. But Crystal, I need you to promise me something. What? Promise you'll take care of yourself too. You're not going to help your grandmother by working yourself to death. Crystal nodded, but they both knew it was a lie. She'd work herself into the ground if it meant saving Graham. Whatever it took. Premium Clean Services operated out of a strip mall in a part of town where all the signs had Korean and Spanish next to the English. The office smelled like pine sol and ambition. The manager, a compact woman named Mrs. Chun, looked Crystal up and down with the assessing gaze of someone who'd seen 1,000 desperate people walk through her door. You've got cleaning experience? Mrs. Chun asked. 5 years. Commercial and residential. I can provide references. Don't need references. I need someone who shows up on time and doesn't steal. Mrs. Chun pulled out a laminated sheet covered in Korean and English. Most important client, Park Industries. 70-story building, mixed commercial and residential. We service floors 30 through 70. You'll be assigned floors 45 through 50. Crystal's heart jumped. $25 an hour for cleaning corporate offices? It seemed too good to be true. What's the catch? She asked. Mrs. Chin's expression turned grim. The catch is Jae-won Park, CEO of Park Industries. Lives in the penthouse, works on the 47th floor. She paused, searching for words. Particular. Very particular. He has rules. Very specific rules. You break them, you're fired. No warnings, no second chances. What kind of rules, ma'am? Mrs. Chun slid a thick binder across her desk. Everything you need to know is in here. Read it. Memorize it. Live it. The last girl who cleaned Park's floors lasted 3 days before she had a panic attack and quit. I can bet with my last buck that you are already glued to the story that you must have forgotten to hit that subscribe button. Yeah, I would forget if I were you too because of how interestingly well everything keep unfolding. Now take a minute to hit that subscribe button, like, and also share the story. Thank you. Crystal opened the binder. The first page was titled Park Industries Cleaning Protocol, Executive Floors. Below it, in smaller text, Revision 47. 47 revisions. When can I start? Crystal asked. Mrs. Chun actually smiled. That's what I like to hear. Tomorrow night, 11 p.m., don't be late. The Park Industries building looked like something out of a sci-fi movie. All glass and steel and sharp angles that seemed to cut the sky. At night, it glowed with an ethereal blue light that made it look like a beacon for the wealthy and powerful. Crystal stood outside at 10:47 p.m., staring up at it. Her phone buzzed with a text from Yumi. You got this. Just remember, it's just cleaning. You've done it a million times. But the building didn't feel like just cleaning. It felt like entering a different world. The night security guard was an older Korean man with a name tag that said Min Soo. He looked up from his desk as Crystal approached, and his expression immediately softened. You must be the new premium clean employee, he said in slightly accented English. Miss Kwame, that's me. How did you know? Mrs. Chin always sends a photo of new hires. Security precaution. Min Soo handed her a badge and an access card. This gets you into floors 45 through 50. The service elevator is around the corner. You'll be working alone up there. Alone? All 5 floors. Mr. Park doesn't like multiple people in his space at once. Says it's too chaotic. Min Soo's expression turned sympathetic. You read the protocol binder, cover to cover. Good. You'll need it. Mr. Park is, well, you'll see. Just follow the rules exactly and you'll be fine. Except fine turned out to be a relative term. By 2 a.m., Crystal understood why the previous cleaner had quit. The floors weren't dirty. They were pristine. It was like cleaning a space that was already clean, searching for invisible imperfections that might offend a man who apparently saw flaws normal humans couldn't perceive. But it wasn't just the cleaning that was exhausting. It was the pressure. Every surface felt important, valuable, untouchable. The art on the walls was clearly original. The furniture looked like it belonged in museums. Even the trash cans were designer. And everywhere, there were signs of Jae-won Park's obsessive control. Books arranged by height and color and subject. Not a single pen out of alignment. The conference room chairs positioned at exact angles around the table. Crystal had measured with the protractor from the protocol binder. Even the plants were arranged in order of size. It was beautiful and terrifying in equal measure. By the time Crystal reached the 47th floor, Jae-won's private office, she was running behind schedule and exhausted to her bones. The protocol binder had warned that this floor required extra time. It hadn't specified why. Now Crystal understood. The office was massive, all floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's skyline. The furniture was a mix of modern minimalism and traditional Korean design. Everything was white or black or chrome, clean lines and deliberate emptiness. It looked like a photograph, not a place where people actually worked. And then there was the chandelier. It hung from the ceiling like a frozen waterfall, crystal prisms catching the city lights and scattering them across the walls. According to the protocol, it needed to be dusted weekly. Tonight was a dusting night. Crystal set up the ladder, climbed carefully, and started working. That's when she knocked over the Goryeo dynasty vase. Crystal didn't sleep that night. After Min Soo escorted her out of the building, gently, apologetically, she'd gone straight to the hospital to sit with Graham. The old woman was sleeping, her breathing ragged, her face slack in a way that made Crystal's chest tight. I messed up, Graham, Crystal whispered, holding her grandmother's papery hand. I got a good job, and I lost it in one night. I don't know what to do. Graham didn't answer. She hadn't been fully conscious in 3 days. Crystal's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. 6 a.m., 1700 Ambw. Penthouse floor. Don't be late. JP. Jae-won Park. Crystal stared at the message. She could ignore it, pretend it never happened, try to find another job. But jobs that paid $25 an hour didn't grow on trees. And Jae-won had said she'd work for him until the phone debt was paid. Was that legal? Could he actually enforce that? Did it matter? Crystal needed money, and he was offering work. She texted back, "I'll be there." The response came immediately, "I know." The address led to a building that made Park Industries look modest. This was where Seoul's wealthiest lived, in penthouses that cost more than entire neighborhoods. The lobby was all marble and gold, with a security desk that looked like a military checkpoint. Crystal gave her name to the guard, who checked his tablet and handed her a key card without comment. Penthouse elevator. Private access. The elevator ride took 43 seconds. Crystal counted each one, her heart beating faster with every floor they passed. When the doors opened, she stepped directly into Jae-won Park's home and stopped breathing. The penthouse was stunning. Enormous windows showed the Han River glittering in the early morning light. The furniture was elegant, minimal, perfect. Every surface gleamed. Every angle was precise. It looked like something from an architecture magazine, beautiful and utterly sterile. "You're 12 minutes early." Jae-won's voice came from somewhere to her right. Crystal turned and found him standing in what appeared to be a kitchen, holding a cup of coffee. He was wearing workout clothes, expensive athletic wear that somehow made him look more intimidating than a suit would have. "I thought early was better than late," Crystal said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Early is unpredictable. Unpredictable disrupts routine." Jae-won's dark eyes assessed her. "But it shows initiative, I suppose." He walked over and handed her tablet. "Your schedule. Follow it exactly. I'll be working in my office. Don't disturb me unless the building is on fire." Crystal looked at the tablet. The schedule was even more detailed than the protocol binder. Every minute of her 12-hour shift was accounted for. Every task specified down to the number of times she should wipe each counter. "This says I'm supposed to prepare your meals," Crystal said slowly. "I'm not a chef. You can follow recipes, can't you?" "Yes, but..." "Then you can cook. The recipes are in the tablet. Follow them exactly." Jae-won turned to leave, then paused. "Don't touch anything personal. Don't move anything. Don't exist in my space more than absolutely necessary." He disappeared through a doorway, leaving Crystal alone in the penthouse. She looked down at the tablet. The first task was breakfast, kimchi jjigae with perfect rice and 3 banchan dishes. Cook time, 45 minutes. Current time, 6:12 a.m. Required serving time, 7 a.m. Crystal took a deep breath and got to work. The kimchi jjigae was a disaster. Not burn the kitchen down disaster, but definitely not the perfect restaurant-quality dish the recipe photos showed. The broth was too salty, the tofu was falling apart, and Crystal was pretty sure she'd used the wrong kind of kimchi. But it was edible, and it was exactly 7 a.m., so she carried it to the dining room. Jae-won was already seated, reading something on his phone. He didn't look up when Crystal set down the tray. She'd arranged everything exactly according to the diagram in the tablet. Soup bowl in the center, rice bowl to the left, banchan plates in a precise semicircle. Spoon and chopsticks at exact right angles. Jae-won glanced at the food. His expression didn't change, but Crystal saw his jaw tighten slightly. "The tofu is disintegrating," he observed. "I know. I'm not a chef." That was established. He picked up his spoon and tasted the broth. His face remained neutral, which somehow felt worse than if he'd grimaced. "It's too salty." "Then maybe your expectations need adjusting." Crystal shot back before she could stop herself. Jae-won's eyes cut to hers. They stared at each other for a long moment, and Crystal was certain she'd just made a terrible mistake. This man owned her debt. He could make her life hell if he wanted to. But instead of anger, something that looked almost like amusement flickered in his expression. Adjust my expectations, he repeated slowly, like he was testing the words. No one's ever suggested that before. Maybe they should have. Jae-won took another sip of the too salty soup. Tomorrow, use less gochugaru and add more water. The recipe's base measurements are for Korean palates. Adjust accordingly. It might have been the closest thing to a compliment Jae-won Park had ever given anyone. The rest of the morning passed in a blur of tasks that never seemed to end. Clean the kitchen. Organize the pantry by expiration date. Vacuum the living room in straight lines. Dust the bookshelves without moving anything out of precise order. By noon, Crystal's back was aching and her hands smelled like cleaning solution. The tablet said she had a 30-minute lunch break, so she collapsed onto one of the kitchen stools and pulled out the kimbap she'd made the night before. She'd taken 3 bites when Jae-won appeared in the doorway. "Is that convenience store kimbap?" he asked, his tone caught between fascination and horror. "I made it myself, actually. Cheaper that way. I have a refrigerator full of organic ingredients, and you're eating day-old rice and processed meat. Your fancy ingredients are for your meals, not mine." Jae-won walked to the refrigerator and started pulling things out. Fresh vegetables, premium bulgogi, expensive cheeses. "You work for me. You eat proper food. I'm fine with my kimbap." "You're not fine. That's barely nutritious." He was already assembling something elaborate on a plate. "Eat this instead." Crystal stared at the beautiful lunch he'd created. It looked like something from a restaurant. Then at Jae-won, then back at the food. "Why do you care what I eat?" "Because if you get sick, you can't work. And if you can't work, my routine gets disrupted." His voice was logical, detached. It's practical. But there was something in his expression that didn't match his cold words. Something that looked almost like concern. He left before Crystal could analyze it further. "Hey bestie, I hope you're still there. Do not forget to support this channel by simply hitting that subscribe button, like, and also share the story." The weird moment came at 2 p.m. when Crystal was organizing Jae-won's walk-in closet. The man had more suits than most people had total outfits, all arranged by color and season and fabric weight. Crystal was replacing cedar blocks when she felt someone watching her. She turned. Jae-won stood in the doorway, his expression intense. "Do you need something?" Crystal asked. "No, just checking your progress. I'm putting cedar blocks in your suit pockets." Not exactly complicated, but Jae-won didn't leave. He stayed there, watching, his presence filling the small space in a way that made Crystal's skin prickle with awareness. She turned back to her work, hyper-conscious of him standing just feet away. When she reached for the next suit, she had to stretch slightly. That's when Jae-won moved. He stepped forward quickly, his hand reaching out like he was going to steady her. But at the last second, he pulled back, his fingers stopping inches from her shoulder. Crystal spun around. "What are you doing?" "Nothing. I thought you were going to lose your balance." His voice was calm, but his eyes betrayed something else. Frustration? Confusion? "I wasn't going to fall. My mistake." Jae-won turned and walked out, leaving Crystal alone in the closet, her heart beating faster than it should. It happened again. At 4 p.m., Crystal was dusting the bookshelf in Jae-won's office when she felt him approach from behind. She glanced over her shoulder and caught him reaching toward her, his hand extended like he was going to tap her shoulder. The moment she turned, he dropped his hand and stepped back. "Yes?" Crystal asked, her voice suspicious. "You're organizing those books incorrectly. They're alphabetized by author, just like your tablet said. Within each author, they should be organized by publication date. Oldest to newest. That wasn't in the instructions. It's implied by basic organizational logic." His voice was getting tighter, more controlled. "Author, then chronology. It's obvious. It's obsessive." They stared at each other. Then Jae-won said quietly, "Fix it, please," and walked away. Crystal stood there, watching him retreat to his desk, and something clicked in her mind. He wasn't actually upset about the books. He'd want an excuse to get close to her. But why? That night, after her shift ended at 6 p.m., Crystal went straight to the hospital. Graham was having a good day, or what counted as a good day now. She was awake, her eyes clearer than they'd been in weeks. "Baby girl," Graham said, her voice raspy. "Where you been?" Working, Gram. Got a new job. Crystal sat beside the bed and took her grandmother's hand. It pays really well. Enough to get you into that nice facility Dr. Kim told us about. Don't want a facility. Want to go home. I know. But you need help, and I can't. Crystal's voice cracked. I can't take care of you the way you need. Not yet. Graham squeezed her hand with surprising strength. You doing too much. Working too hard. I'm doing what I have to do. That boy treating you right? This new boss. Crystal thought about Jae-won. Cold, controlling, impossible to please. But also, making her lunch, checking on her work, reaching out to touch her, then pulling away like he was fighting himself. It's complicated, Crystal said finally. Graham's eyes sharpened with understanding. Always is when your heart gets involved. My heart's not involved. He's just my boss. But Graham smiled like she knew better. And the scary thing was, Crystal was starting to think maybe she did. 1 week later, Crystal confronted Jae-won about the almost touching thing. They were in the kitchen. She was making his afternoon snack, some elaborate fruit arrangement that required precise knife work. And he was hovering nearby, pretending to check the cleanliness of the refrigerator shelves. Why do you keep doing that? Crystal asked without looking up from the strawberry she was cutting. Doing what? Getting close to me, reaching like you're going to touch me, then pulling away. She set down the knife and turned to face him. If you have a problem with my work, just say it. Stop dancing around whatever this is. Jae-won was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, when you grabbed my wrist that night in my office, did you feel anything unusual? The question caught Crystal completely off guard. Feel anything? You mean besides panic that I destroyed your phone? Yes, besides that. Jae-won's dark eyes were intense, searching. When your skin touched mine, did you feel anything? Crystal thought back to that moment. The electric shock, the warm tingles that had spread through her whole body. She'd assumed it was adrenaline, fear, exhaustion playing tricks. I'm not sure what you mean, Crystal said carefully, heat rising to her cheeks. Jae-won studied her face for another moment. Then he held out his hand. Touch me again. What? Your hand on my wrist. Like you did before. His voice was calm, clinical, like he was proposing a science experiment. I need to test something. Test what? Just do it. Please. Crystal stared at his outstretched hand. This was insane. Her boss was asking her to touch him. The same boss who clearly had issues with physical contact, who moved through the world like he was afraid of contamination. You don't like being touched, Crystal said slowly. Even noticed. You don't shake hands. You flinch when people get close. I know. So why would you want me to? Because I need to know if it happens again. Jae-won's voice was tight now, frustrated. Just touch me, Crystal. Please. The use of her first name made something flutter in her chest. Slowly, carefully, she reached out and placed her hand on his wrist. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Electricity shot through both of them, that same warm, pleasant shock that made Crystal gasp and Jae-won's eyes go wide. But this time, Jae-won didn't pull away. He stood perfectly still, staring at Crystal's hand on his skin, his breathing coming faster. You feel it, Jae-won whispered. Don't you? Yes, Crystal breathed. I feel it. They stood like that for several heartbeats, hand on wrist, electricity crackling between them, neither one willing to break the connection. Finally, Crystal pulled her hand back, her heart racing. What is that? Why does that happen? I don't know. Jae-won was staring at his wrist like it held the secrets of the universe. With everyone else, when they touch me, I feel contaminated, disgusted, like I need to scrub my skin until it's raw. But with you, Crystal prompted, her voice barely audible. Jae-won looked up at her, and the vulnerability in his eyes made her breath catch. With you, I feel human again. That night, Crystal couldn't sleep. She kept replaying the moment in the kitchen, the way Jae-won had looked at her, the electricity between them. With you, I feel human again. What did that mean? She rolled over in her narrow bed and grabbed her phone. Before she could second-guess herself, she texted Yoon-mi. I think my boss is breaking my brain. The response came immediately. It's 2 a.m. Why are you awake? And which boss? The rich one. Oh no. Crystal, tell me you're not catching feelings for Jae-won Park. I'm not catching feelings. I'm just confused. That's how it starts. He's my employer. He's holding me in a debt contract. I shouldn't feel anything except resentment. And yet when he touches me, I feel like I'm on fire in the best possible way. There was a long pause. Then, you need to be careful. Men like him, they're not like us. They live in a different world. I know. Do you? Because from where I'm sitting, this sounds like the beginning of a disaster. Crystal stared at her phone. Yumi was right. She knew Yumi was right. Jae-won Park was a billionaire with control issues and a complicated relationship with human touch. Crystal was a broke girl from the wrong side of Seoul, trying to save her dying grandmother. They existed in completely different realities. But that electricity, when they touched, that was real. Whatever it meant, it was real. 2 weeks later, everything changed. The day started normally enough. Crystal arrived at the penthouse at 6 a.m., made breakfast. The kimchi jjigae was perfect now. She'd mastered Jae-won's preferences and started her cleaning routine. At 1 p.m., Jae-won's phone rang. Crystal was in the living room, close enough to hear his side of the conversation, even though she tried not to eavesdrop. Today, Jae-won's voice was tight, stressed in a way Crystal had never heard. You're certain it has to be today? A pause. Fine. 3 o'clock. Yes, I understand. He hung up and immediately started pacing. His hand reflexing at his sides, his jaw clenched so tight Crystal could see the muscle jumping. Is everything okay? Crystal asked carefully. Building inspection. They check all penthouse units quarterly for safety violations. Jae-won's pacing got faster. They're coming in 2 hours. Okay, and that's a problem because the bedroom isn't clean. Crystal blinked. I cleaned the bedroom this morning. It's spotless. You don't understand. Jae-won ran his hand through his hair, messing it up in a way Crystal had never seen. I had an episode last night. A bad one. The bedroom it's not presentable. An episode? My anxiety. When it's bad, Jae-won's jaw clenched. Just go look. Crystal walked to the master bedroom and opened the door. The room looked like a tornado had hit it. The bed was destroyed, blankets twisted, pillows scattered, sheets pulled completely off the mattress. Books had been knocked off the nightstand. There was broken glass on the floor. Even the curtains were half torn from their rods. This was a mess. This was evidence of someone having a complete breakdown. Oh my God, Crystal whispered. Jae-won appeared behind her, and she could hear the shame in his voice. I told you it was bad. What happened? Panic attack. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I was trying to... He gestured helplessly at the destruction. It doesn't matter. The inspectors will be here in less than 2 hours, and I can't let them see this. Crystal turned to look at him. For the first time since she'd met him, Jae-won Park looked small, vulnerable, human. Then we better get started, Crystal said. They worked together in focused silence. Crystal stripped the bed while Jae-won picked up the broken glass. She straightened the curtains while he reorganized the books. She vacuumed while he wiped every surface. At one point, they both reached for the same pillow. Their hands touched. That familiar electricity shot through them both, but neither one pulled away. They just stood there, hands touching, eyes locked, something heavy and unspoken passing between them. Thank you, Jae-won said quietly, for not asking questions, for just helping. You're welcome. The moment stretched between them, charged with something neither of them was ready to name. Then Jae-won's phone buzzed with a reminder. 30 minutes until the inspection. They broke apart and finished the work. The bedroom was perfect by the time the inspectors arrived. 2 people in official uniforms, clipboards in hand, professionally polite smiles on their faces. They checked smoke detectors, tested outlets, examined windows. Everything looks great, the lead inspector said finally. Mr. Park maintains his property beautifully. After they left, Crystal found Jae-won in his office, staring at his computer screen without actually seeing it. They're gone, Crystal said from the doorway. Everything passed. Jae-won's shoulders sagged with relief. Thank you. For covering. For cleaning. For... He turned to look at her. For not making me feel broken. You're not broken. I destroyed my own bedroom because I couldn't breathe. That's pretty much the definition of broken. Crystal walked into the office and sat down in the chair across from his desk. She'd never done that before. It felt presumptuous. But right now, Jae-won didn't look like a powerful CEO. He looked like someone who needed to be seen. Tell me about it, Crystal said quietly. Please. Jae-won was silent for so long that Crystal thought he wouldn't answer. Then he started talking. I was 23, Jae-won said, his voice distant. Just out of university. My father had built Park Industries from nothing, and I was supposed to take over eventually. But I wanted to prove myself first, do something independently. He paused. Crystal waited. I invested in a tech startup. Against my father's advice. He said it was too risky, too volatile, but I was young and arrogant and thought I knew better. Jae-won's laugh was bitter. The company tanked spectacularly. Lost everything. Millions of won. Gone in 6 months. That's not your fault. Businesses fail all the time. But 3 of my friends had invested too, based on my recommendation. They lost their savings. Their futures. Jae-won's hands were trembling slightly. One of them, Min-jun, he'd used his parents' retirement fund. They lost everything. And Min-jun, he couldn't handle it. The guilt, the shame. Crystal's stomach dropped. She knew where this was going. He took his own life, Jae-won whispered. Left a note saying he couldn't face his family. Couldn't live with what he'd done. And it was my fault. I convinced him to invest. I'd promised it was safe. Jae-won, you couldn't have known. I should have known. I should have listened to my father, should have been more careful, should have. His voice broke. I destroyed lives because I was reckless and arrogant and thought I couldn't fail. You were 23. You made a mistake that killed someone. Jae-won finally looked at her, and his eyes were full of self-loathing. After Min-jun died, I had my first panic attack. Then another. Then they became constant. The anxiety, the need for control, the obsessive behaviors, they're my punishment. My reminder that I can't be careless, can't be reckless, can't let chaos into my life because chaos destroys everything. Crystal's heart was breaking for this man who'd been carrying this guilt for years. That's not how anxiety works. It's not punishment, it's illness. It's what I deserve. No, Crystal said firmly. It's not. What happened to Min-jun is tragic, but it wasn't murder. It was a terrible combination of circumstances and mental illness and bad timing. You didn't kill him. I might as well have. Stop. Crystal stood up and walked around the desk. Jae-won watched her warily. She held out her hand. Give me your hand. Crystal, just do it. Slowly, Jae-won placed his hand in hers. The electricity was there, just like always. Crystal squeezed gently. You were 23 years old, she said. Young, trying to prove yourself. You made a bad investment. That's not the same as being responsible for someone's death. Min-jun made his own choices, including his final one. You can mourn him. You can regret what happened. But you cannot keep punishing yourself for circumstances you couldn't control. Jae-won's eyes were bright with unshed tears. I can't let go of the control. If I do, you won't destroy the world. You'll just start living it again. They stood like that for a long moment, hands clasped, something profound passing between them. Then Jae-won pulled his hand away gently and said, Thank you for listening. Anytime. Crystal turned to leave, but Jae-won's voice stopped her. Tomorrow is Sunday. Your day off. Would you? He hesitated. Would you mind if I came with you to visit your grandmother? Crystal turned back, surprised. You want to come to the hospital? I know I have issues with hospitals. With germs. With contamination. But I'd like to meet the woman who raised someone like you. If that's okay. Something warm bloomed in Crystal's chest. Yeah, she said softly. That would be okay. Sunday morning arrived clear and cool. Crystal stood outside Seoul Memorial Hospital at 9 a.m., checking her phone for the 3rd time. Jae-won had texted 20 minutes ago, on my way. Traffic heavy. A black car pulled up and Jae-won emerged. Crystal's breath caught. He looked good, really good. He dressed down, or what counted as dressing down for him. Dark jeans, a gray sweater, a leather jacket. But it was his face that made her heart skip. He looked nervous. "Hey," Jae-won said, stopping a few feet away. "Hey yourself." Crystal noticed he was carrying a small bag. "What's that?" "Supplies." He opened it to reveal hand sanitizer, disinfectant wipes, disposable gloves, and what looked like a military-grade air purifier. "I'm going into a hospital. I need to be prepared. You don't have to do this." "I want to." Jae-won met her eyes. "I want to meet the woman who raised someone strong enough to call me out on my behavior." They made it exactly 17 steps into the hospital before Jae-won's breathing got shallow. "You okay?" Crystal asked. "Fine," Jae-won said tightly. He pulled out hand sanitizer and used it liberally, then snapped on disposable gloves. "Just fine." In the elevator, pressed together with 3 other people, Jae-won looked like he might pass out. When a nurse accidentally brushed his arm, he flinched so hard he hit the wall. Crystal reached out and touched his hand, the small patch of skin between his glove and his sleeve. Jae-won's eyes met hers, and she saw the panic recede slightly. "You're doing great," Crystal whispered. "I'm having a panic attack in an elevator. But you're still here. That's what counts." Graham was awake when they arrived. For the first time in weeks, her eyes were clear and alert. When she saw Crystal, her face lit up. "Baby girl," Graham said, her voice stronger than it had been in days. "Come here." Crystal hugged her carefully, trying not to disturb the 4 lines. Then Graham's eyes shifted to Jae-won, who stood awkwardly by the door, clearly trying to touch as few surfaces as possible. "And who's this handsome man you brought with you?" Graham asked, her voice sharp despite her weakened state. "Graham, this is Jae-won. My employer." "Your employer?" Graham's eyes narrowed. "The one who paid my medical bills?" "Yes, ma'am," Jae-won said, stepping forward carefully. He didn't extend his hand, couldn't, with his issues, but he bowed respectfully. "It's an honor to meet you." Graham studied him with an intensity that made Crystal nervous. "And how exactly does my granddaughter's employer end up paying $200,000 in medical bills?" "Oh no, Graham, I told you. I'm working it off." "Working it off how?" "That's not a normal employment arrangement, baby. That's something else entirely." Jae-won, to his credit, didn't flinch. "Your granddaughter is working as my household manager for an agreed-upon period and hourly rate that will cover the medical expenses." "How long?" 2 years. Graham's expression turned cold. "So you bought my granddaughter. 2 years of servitude for my medical bills. That's not generosity, Mr. Park. That's exploitation." The room fell silent. Crystal had never heard anyone speak to Jae-won like that. Most people were too intimidated, too impressed by his wealth. But her grandmother had spent 60 years surviving in a world that didn't want her to succeed. A billionaire with control issues didn't scare her. "You're right," Jae-won said quietly. Crystal's head whipped around to stare at him. "What?" "Your grandmother is right," Jae-won continued, his voice steady but his eyes pained. "I did exploit your situation. I used your desperation to get what I wanted. At the time, I told myself it was just business. But the truth is more complicated." "What truth?" Graham asked sharply. Jae-won looked at Crystal, and something vulnerable crossed his face. "The truth is that your granddaughter is the only person who's ever touched me without making me feel contaminated. The truth is that I trapped her in this arrangement because I'm selfish and broken, and I wanted to understand why she affects me the way she does." He turned back to Graham. "The truth is I'm falling for your granddaughter, and I don't know how to handle that without trying to control it." Crystal forgot how to breathe. Graham stared at Jae-won for a long moment. Then she said, "Sit down, Mr. Park. Let's talk." Jae-won sat beside Graham's bed, looking more nervous than Crystal had ever seen him. "You got anxiety issues?" Graham asked bluntly. "Yes, ma'am." "You in therapy?" "No." Graham's expression said everything. "Why not?" "Because I don't deserve to get better. I made a mistake that cost someone their life. My anxiety is my punishment." "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard." Jae-won blinked. "Excuse me?" "You heard me. Dumbest thing ever." Graham shifted in her bed. "You were young. Young people make mistakes. Tragic ones sometimes. But punishing yourself forever doesn't honor the person you lost. It just wastes the life you still have. Mrs. Kwame, and using my granddaughter to work through your issues? That's wrong. Selfish. Graham's eyes were fierce. But I can see you know that. I can see the guilt. So here's what's going to happen. Everyone waited. You're going to therapy. Real therapy, not just medication. You're going to work on yourself like a grown man instead of hiding behind your money. Graham pointed a finger at Jae-won. And you're going to release Crystal from this contract immediately. Graham, Crystal protested. Hush. I'm not done. Graham turned that finger toward Crystal. And you, if you want to keep working for this man, that's your choice. But it has to be a choice, not an obligation. Understand? Crystal nodded, too stunned to speak. Graham looked back at Jae-won. You love my granddaughter? Jae-won swallowed hard. I think I might. It's complicated. Love is always complicated. But it shouldn't be transactional. Graham leaned back, suddenly looking exhausted. So, if you want to be with Crystal, you court her properly. You date her. You treat her with respect. And if she chooses you, it's because she wants you, not because she owes you. Clear? Yes, ma'am. Good. Now get out. Both of you. I need to sleep. She teased. Crystal tucked her properly into the bed before she left with Jae-won. Crystal and Jae-won stood in the hospital parking lot, neither one knowing what to say. Your grandmother is terrifying, Jae-won said finally. Despite everything, Crystal laughed. Yeah, she's something else. She's also right about everything. Jae-won turned to face Crystal fully. I'm releasing you from the contract. Effective immediately. The debt is forgiven. You're free. Crystal's heart dropped. What? No, Jae-won, the money. The money doesn't matter. His voice was intense. What matters is that I trapped you in a situation you never chose, and that was wrong. So I'm making it right. But let me finish. Jae-won took a breath. I'm releasing you from the contract, but I'm also asking if you'd consider staying. Not as my employee, as something else. Something else. I don't know what to call it yet, but I know that when you're around, my penthouse feels like a home instead of a sterile cage. I know that when you touch me, I feel human for the first time in years. I know that you make me want to be better, to get help, to actually live instead of just existing. Crystal's eyes were burning. She refused to let tears fall. You don't have to answer now, Jae-won continued. Take time. Think about it. But Crystal, I need you to know, if you walk away right now, I'll understand. And I'll still make sure your grandmother gets the best care for the rest of her life. No strings, no debt. Just because you deserve it. This man was offering her freedom, and all Crystal wanted was to choose him anyway. I need to think, Crystal said finally. This is a lot. I know. Take all the time you need. 3 days later, Crystal still hadn't gone back to the penthouse. Jae-won had sent her a formal release from the contract, signed and notarized. Her debt was forgiven. She was free, and Graham's medical bills continued to be paid, even though Crystal no longer worked for him. On the third day, Yumi came over with coffee and determination. Okay, talk, Yumi said, settling onto Crystal's couch. You've been radio silent for 3 days. What's going on? Crystal told her everything. The contract release, Jae-won's confession, Graham's intervention. When she finished, Yumi was quiet for a long moment. Then, do you love him? I don't know. Maybe. It's complicated. It's always complicated with you. Yumi took a sip of coffee. But here's the real question. Do you want to find out if you love him? Did she? Crystal thought about Jae-won's vulnerable eyes when he talked about Minjun. The way he'd faced his hospital phobia just to meet Graham. The electricity that sparked between them. The way he'd set her free even though it cost him everything. Yeah, Crystal said softly. I think I do. Then what are you waiting for? Go get your man. Crystal showed up at Jae-won's penthouse at 6 p.m. on a Thursday, her heart pounding. She used the key card he'd never asked her to return and rode the elevator up. The penthouse was dark when she arrived. No lights, no sound. Jae-won, Crystal called out. No answer. She walked through the living room and noticed something that made her stop. There were dishes in the sink, a coffee cup on the counter, a jacket thrown over a chair instead of hung in the closet. Jae-won's perfect order was falling apart. She found him in his bedroom, sitting on the floor with his back against the bed, staring at nothing. The room was messy, not destroyed like before, but definitely not the pristine space she was used to seeing. Jae-won, he looked up, surprise crossing his face. Crystal, what are you doing here? I came to give you my answer. Jae-won stood up slowly, his expression carefully neutral. But first I need to know something. Crystal stepped closer. That first night in your office, did you really feel something when we touched? Or was that just manipulation to trap me? I felt it. Jae-won's voice was raw, honest. I've spent years recoiling from human touch. And then you grabbed my wrist, and I felt alive. It terrified me. So I trapped you because I'm selfish, and I wanted to understand it. To understand you. And do you understand me? No. But I want to spend however long it takes learning. Crystal closed the distance between them until they were standing inches apart. I have conditions. Anything. First, you start therapy. Real therapy. This week. Is that clear? Her brows creased as she spoke. Done. He answered almost immediately. Second, you stop using your anxiety as punishment. You work on getting better because you deserve to heal, not because I'm asking you to. Okay. Third, we date like normal people. You take me to dinner. We go to movies. We figure out if this electricity between us is real or just some weird psychological reaction to trauma. Jae-won's lips twitched into an almost smile. Those are fair conditions. And fourth, Crystal reached out and took his hand, feeling that familiar shock run through both of them. You let me help you clean up this mess. Because partners don't let partners drown alone. Jae-won's eyes went bright with emotion. Partners, if you want to be. Instead of answering with words, Jae-won pulled her close and wrapped his arms around her. Crystal gasped. He was touching her freely, willingly, without fear. Your anxiety, Crystal whispered. Won't this make you panic? I thought it would, Jae-won murmured into her hair. But it doesn't. With you, it doesn't. They stood like that, holding each other, feeling the electricity flow between them. Not just a strange shock, but something deeper, something real. Finally, Jae-won pulled back to look at her. I need to test something. Test what? If I can kiss you without panicking, I'll know for certain that what I feel for you is stronger than my disorder. His thumb traced her jawline. Can I kiss you? Crystal rose on her toes and closed the distance. The moment Jae-won's lips touched Crystal's, the world stopped. It wasn't just electricity, it was everything. The way he kissed her like she was precious, like she was the answer he'd been searching for. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Jae-won pressed his forehead against hers. I think I found my cure, he whispered. I'm not a cure. I'm just a person. Crystal pulled back to look at him properly. You still need therapy. You still need to work on yourself. I can't fix you. I know, but you make me want to fix myself. That's more than anyone's ever done. They kissed again, slower this time. Sweeter. Then Crystal's phone rang. She groaned and pulled it out. The hospital. Miss Kwame, this is Dr. Kim. I want to let you know your grandmother is being released next week. Her recovery has exceeded all our expectations. Crystal felt tears spring to her eyes. Really? She can come home? Yes. She'll need follow-up care, but she's beaten this. Your grandmother is going home. After Crystal hung up, she turned to Jae-won with tears streaming down her face. Gram's coming home. She beat it. Jae-won pulled her into another hug, and Crystal felt his chest shake with emotion too. They stood like that in his messy bedroom, holding each other. Two broken people who'd somehow found healing in each other. 1 week later, the knock on Jae-won's door came at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday. Jae-won opened it to find a woman he hadn't seen in 3 years. His mother. Hello, Jae-won. Everything inside him went cold. How did you find me? You're a CEO. You're not exactly hard to find. His mother, Jae-won Park, stepped into the penthouse without being invited. We need to talk. Just then, Crystal came out of the kitchen, dish towel in hand. Jae-won took one look at her, and her expression turned cold. Who is this? Your girlfriend. Why do you care? Jae-won shot back, noticing Crystal's unease. You stopped caring about my life years ago. You don't deserve happiness, Jae-won. Not after what you did to Minjun. Crystal stood frozen, watching the stranger attack Jae-won with viciousness that made the air toxic. Mom, please. Don't call me that. You lost the right when you destroyed that boy's future. It wasn't. And then you abandoned me. Left me to deal with Minjun's parents, their grief, their accusations. While you ran off to play CEO with your father's company. You told me to leave. Jae-won's voice was rising. You said looking at me made you sick. Because it did. You were a reminder of everything that went wrong. I was 23 years old. The words hung in the air. Mi-sun's face twisted. And now I hear you're playing house with some girl, planning to be happy, planning to just forget. Stop, Crystal said firmly, stepping between them. Just stop. Mi-sun turned her fury on Crystal. This doesn't concern you. Yes, it does. Because I love him, and I'm not going to stand here and let you abuse him for something that happened when he was barely an adult. You don't understand what he took from that family. I understand grief. I understand loss. My grandmother almost died. Crystal's voice was steady, strong. And you know what I never did? I never blamed her for getting sick. I never told her she didn't deserve to live. That's not love. That's cruelty. Mi-sun's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Jae-won was 23. Crystal continued. He made a bad investment. That's not the same as being responsible for someone's death. Minjun made his own choices, including his final one. And instead of helping Jae-won heal from that trauma, you blamed him. You told him he was responsible. You walked away. He destroyed that family. A business failure destroyed that family. Mental illness destroyed that family. A terrible combination of circumstances destroyed that family. Crystal's voice rose. Jae-won lost his friend too, and then he lost his mother because you were too consumed by guilt and grief to see that you still had a son who needed you. Tears filled Mi-sun's eyes despite her desperate attempts to fight them back. Can you imagine? Crystal asked quietly. Can you imagine a 23-year-old man who just lost his friend, thrown out by his own mother? The only parent who could help him through it. Mi-sun was crying now, silent tears running down her face. I spent 3 years in therapy. Do you know what that does to a person? Jae-won spent the same years punishing himself. Together, you could have healed. Apart, it just got worse. Mother and son stared at each other across the penthouse. I wanted to call you, Jae-won said quietly. After Minjun died, I tried. But you wouldn't answer. I couldn't look at you without seeing Minjun's face. His parents' grief. Everything that went wrong. So you lost me too. Mi-sun's face crumpled. I know I failed you. I was drowning, and I let you drown with me. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It was the apology Jae-won had needed for years. Crystal quietly slipped away, leaving them to talk. 3 hours later, Crystal found Jae-won and Mi-sun sitting on the couch, photo album open between them. They were looking at pictures from before. Young Jae-won, smiling, carefree. That's you at university, Mi-sun said, pointing. You were so confident, so sure you could change the world. I was arrogant. You were young. There's a difference. They kept talking, sharing memories, beginning the long process of rebuilding what tragedy had destroyed. 2 days later, Jae-won stood in Crystal's apartment, looking completely out of place among the second-hand furniture. Your grandmother is being released today, he said. I know. I'm picking her up in an hour. Where will she stay? Here. We'll make it work. What if I have a better idea? Jae-won pulled out a key. I own a building in Gangnam. There's a 2-bedroom apartment on the 5th floor with a view of the river. It's yours. No rent. I can't accept that. It's not charity. It's me making sure the woman I love and her grandmother have a safe place to heal. He pressed the key into her hand. Please let me do this. Crystal looked at the key, then at Jae-won's face. So open, so vulnerable, so full of hope. Okay, she whispered. Thank you. Jae-won took both her hands in his. Whatever you need, Crystal. Always. She rose up and kissed him, putting everything she felt into it. When they broke apart, Jae-won was smiling. That rare, genuine smile. I started therapy, by the way. Yesterday. First session. How was it? Terrible. Uncomfortable. I hated every second. His smile widened. I'm going back next week. I'm proud of you. My therapist wants to meet you eventually. She says you're a significant factor in my recovery. Your recovery? Apparently having someone who makes you want to heal is powerful motivation. Jae-won pulled her close. You make me want to heal, Crystal. You make me want to be better. Good. Because I don't want perfect. I want real. 1 year later, Crystal and Jae-won returned to the Park Industries building together. The 47th floor looked exactly the same. Pristine, perfect, controlled. Except now, there was a photo on Jae-won's desk. Him and Crystal laughing, his arms around her waist, her head thrown back in joy. Real, imperfect, beautiful. I still can't believe you kept that chandelier, Crystal said, looking up at it. Are you kidding? That chandelier is significant. It's where you lost your balance and knocked over my family's priceless heirloom. Where everything changed. Where you threatened to have me arrested for touching you. Details. Jae-won grinned and pulled her close. Make a wish. A wish. You knocked over that vase a year ago, desperate and exhausted. Now you're here by choice, happy and healthy. That seems like a good reason to make a wish. Crystal closed her eyes and thought about everything that had happened. Graham's recovery, the debt forgiven, Jae-won's therapy, Mi-sun's return, the messy, complicated, beautiful relationship they'd built. She opened her eyes and looked at the man who'd trapped her and then set her free. I wish for more of this, Crystal said. More growth, more healing, more love. More of us figuring out life together. That's a good wish, Jae-won murmured, kissing her softly. I'll help you make it come true. And he did, because love isn't about perfection or control. It's about choosing to grow together, even when it's messy and hard. It's about finding someone who makes you want to heal. Not because they fix you, but because they make you believe you're worth fixing. And sometimes, just sometimes, the worst day of your life leads you directly to the best thing that ever happened to you. The end. Thank you for staying tuned to the end of this story. I hope it was worth your time. I want you to comment your favorite moment in the story. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. See you in the next story.